neighbors. Welcome to another episode of Tipsy Neighbors. We are 5 friends with varied opinions and backgrounds. We openly and honestly discuss the subject of the day. No topic is off limits. In fact, if you'd like us to chat about something that's been on your mind, find us on the web at tipsyneighbors.com, on Instagram at The Tipsy Neighbors, or on X, formerly Twitter, at Tipsy Neighbors. Now let's get this episode started. Tonight on Tipsy Neighbors, gender roles.
In the red corner.
In the red corner.
What the?
Now paint it red.
Oh my
Justin.
gosh. It's
That was not
Unity.
a-
Red room of pain.
It's unity.
That was not a political thing. That was more of a boxing term.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't
Like
get any of
Boxing Day?
Kind of.
that. For Canada?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Isn't that the day after Christmas?
We don't know. We're not Canadian.
that's Boxing Day.
No, it's
yes.
also England.
We don't know. We're not English.
We're not English.
All right. Well, okay.
I'm just kidding. It is somewhere around there. I know there is a Boxing Day.
All right.
You need
I
more
don't know if we're
alcohol.
talking about holidays again or if we're
I see it on my calendar too.
We should start doing a tipsy rating for each episode. Like, how tipsy were you?
Or how tipsy do you need to be to listen?
Yeah,
It'd be
that's
nice
true.
to have
Rate the candidate, rate the host.
have a bar
Tipsy or
graph.
day?
Have a bar graph of who
Is
was
it
the
a
most
white
tipsy.
wine episode or is it a red? Oh my goodness. All right, so we are going to talk about gender roles, and I think it's a great episode for us because we all have kind of unique situations. So
What are you saying, Ty?
I'm saying there's no one here to play mom's role. So I'm kind of on my own
We got
for
games,
that
we
one.
got
Same
bars.
here.
Same here.
It's weird.
Oh, yeah. But let's talk about it. That's why
We've
we're
talked
here.
about this before. And
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, we brought it up a little bit.
been a good conversation. Not everybody agrees on everything on this topic.
Well, yeah, and I think when you
That's
think
true.
back to growing up,
Yeah.
kind of what our interpretation of what gender roles were as young kids too, and when we're influenced and it's very different today. I feel versus back then. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
I-
yeah, just
Yes.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
10
and
years ago.
Yeah.
I think part of that, some of that upbringing stuff actually probably led to my divorce. Like the things that I thought the man was supposed to do and the important things that I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I neglected all the things that keep the marriage together. Not
Yeah.
all of them, but
I
know,
think
a
that's
fair
a great
amount of
comment because
No,
I think that
totally.
happens a lot in relationships. I
Like,
think
I
I
was the
just
provider.
feel like,
Yeah.
and I just
Yeah.
feel like men are starting to see that there's more to life and more. It takes more in a relationship than you to go to work and bring home a paycheck.
I'm
Yeah,
not
for sure.
understanding this laundry thing again.
I know.
Brad jumps right into the fire.
Here we start.
Why
Yeah.
is it warm in here?
It is very fascinating though of that influenced your outcome because of how you were influenced. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I had to get out of it
Yeah.
to realize, oh shit, look what I've done.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
long? How long
Yeah.
did it take you to realize that contributed to maybe the divorce or?
You know, as I started working through stuff and started owning, the parts that I was supposed to own, and I think I came out of it taking on that villain role, if there is one in divorce. Just kind of like it's all my
Always.
fault. I did all
Yeah.
the terrible things. And then as I started realizing, well, it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
And there's okay, this happened and that happened, and I'm not placing blame, but in terms of what was important to me, maybe the last, 6 or 7 years leading up to the divorce,
Yeah.
I was so focused on building a business and building this life and providing all this
Doing
shit.
the mill thing. We're doing the mill thing.
Well, yeah,
Not-
I mean,
not
that,
today's
like,
world.
well,
Patriarchy thing.
the patriarchy thing. That's a good way to put it. Like I was so focused on this is my role. I provide for my family. And I was like, oh shit, I should go out on a date once in a while. And I remember there was this restaurant that me and my former wife had been to and had a great time at. So we went back to that, and I had a customer issue that just melted. The system just melted down. And so it ruined the night. I had to go home, and I was super frustrated with the whole thing. I then had to jump on a plane to Burbank later the next day, and it was just a mess. And after I got home from that, like the repercussions of that just lasted for weeks because I was so focused on that and I just couldn't be in the moment. I was never present,
Yeah.
So it was kind of that, so focused on, just being the provider. It was awful.
Yeah.
So, but now, now out of it and everything, I often tell people like I'm a way better dad after the divorce. Like my kid, I know my kids' names and birthdays now, that's a little sarcastic, but for real, like just focusing, I've been able to focus on those relationships a little bit more, because one's already fallen apart, probably for more reasons than just that. But, yeah, so you just kind of figure out what's important.
Yeah, totally. And I think that like going along with that is communication is so huge. And I think in understanding marriage things in general, but really the gender roles, because if you're not communicating or feeling like you're confident and able to communicate with your spouse, then how do you work through the like, well, this is my expectation or this is your expectation, and how do you come to an agreement? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I like that because as a now Brene Brown disciple, I kind of like call myself. I couldn't tell you like which books say what.
Yeah.
But she talks about how she and her husband, I just love the way she presents all of the topics, right? She's so down to earth. She talks about you got to be at 100%, but there's no such thing as 50-50. Somebody could be at 95 and somebody could be at 5. And you just, that communication is stepping up and figuring out who's where.
Yes.
And if you've got it, step it up. If you don't got it, then more communication.
Right.
And you need to figure out how to get to 100.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing too, is going back to that communication, like you said too, Ty, of like it's never 50-50.
Yeah.
But if you can communicate that and you have the ability to say, this is where I'm at today, I need you to step in, gender roles kind of dissipate. There isn't a gender role at that point. It's a partnership of this is what we have to do and what we have to accomplish. There isn't your role, my role, and we don't deviate.
Yeah.
It then becomes a true partnership.
I do love seeing like on social media where a lot of men are starting to realize, like I said earlier, it takes more than just I'm going to work and come home and provide a paycheck and you are responsible for the kids and the house and the going ons, right?
Yep.
I love that a lot of men are starting to pick up, okay, I have to step in and do more than that. Like, because it wasn't too long ago where that was the gender roles.
That was
the
it.
men worked,
for
the
sure.
women took care of everything else. And there is a huge mental burden on taking care of a household and kids.
Well,
and that people don't understand. I don't think a lot of people that aren't taking on that role understand that our brain is going all the time of like, oh, the kids they have to be here. They need this. I have to take this for class and I have to prepare this meal and this is what they need. And this is like, there's something going on all the time. And in today's world, most of the women work too.
have
And they're
jobs, too.
still
Yeah,
expected
totally. I was
to
just gonna
take
say that.
on that role. And it
to
is
manage.
hugely
'Cause that's what I was
a
going to say.
mental burden.
Yes.
Historically, it's been a one income household was able to survive. Nowadays, that's not for 99% of Americans, I would say. That maybe not 99, but
A huge
high
majority,
majority,
yes.
huge majority it has to be a dual income home.
Which
And-
is maybe
and
where
that's a
some of the men
change-
are having
and that's
to
a
learn to
change
step
in
up
this.
in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a huge change in
Yeah,
society.
I also think though is the negative mentality of that of like I'm working all day and she's at home with the kids. So then like when, I come home from work and sometimes I'm like, well, I'm exhausted. I don't have like, I need some me time. Does that make sense? And I often forget like Curry's been at home all day long with the kids, interacting, entertaining. And like you said, Whitney, like jumping from activity to that and making sure schedules are on like,
And
that's
also
also
maintaining
exhausting.
work.
And
It is exhausting.
He very much deserves
and the job.
him time at night too. And
Right.
and that's where the
because
whole
it doesn't end when you
Yes.
take care of the
Yes.
household and the kids. Like you don't get a clock out
Correct.
and go home and like, okay, well, I left that at work, even though it was an exhausting day. Like I get to go home and just have some me time. Like the person that's taking on the role of like really taking on the kids or for the majority of the time doesn't get that break.
Well, and I think that's what we, like you and I, Whitney, have to balance. We're working full time.
Yep.
And we have kids at home, multiple kids at home, where we're balancing a full-time job, multiple kids' schedules, and carpool pickup and homework and next day activities and field trips. You need this and you need that. And we have to still go in to the school and provide so many volunteer hours that there isn't not a time off. And I think Justin and I kind of talked about that a little bit, like not necessarily gender roles lately, but like, where is that give and take? Where is the 50-50 or 75-25 to get to 100?
Sounds like we need the nanny.
We need a third.
well, are you
And
talking?
now magically we're in a throuple.
And now we're in a throuple.
It depends on what the benefits are.
We need a 33% on everybody in here.
Well, I think like one thing that like going along with that is is personally just recently we went through potty training.
Yeah, we just confronted this.
And so our youngest is potty training. And so we were trying to like, I'm like, we're both kind of involved in doing it. And we kind of thought like, I wonder just in general, like,
well, one of us is a lot better and a lot more patient than the other.
depending on the time of day.
You tend to have a lot more patience with potty training than I do.
But yeah, but like, so we did a little poll of like who, out of your household, like who potty trained the kids. And we did, was it mom, was it dad, or was it both? And
is it dad number one or dad number two?
33% or 37% said that it was just mom. 53% said that it was a team effort. And then 9% said it was just dad.
So 53 probably is skewed. Because
that's somebody being really
one
generous.
One way or the other.
I
Like
did
the guy's
zilch.
like, yeah, I definitely
I took him
helped.
to the bathroom once or
I
twice.
took him once to a restaurant. And it's actually the mom in the back like,
taking
you're
pride.
right, don't respond.
That is so
or
true.
Vice versa.
That is so true.
I may have told Lennox we're at a camp out, bud. Just go pee and by the trees over there.
But I think
Like that's
So
as
you
much.
helped.
That was,
I think
that's
you're-
potty training. He
That
was
was
12.
50-50.
He was 12.
But
I think your gender role plays into your numbers there. Though.
Oh my gosh.
If you're talking
Totally.
gender, right?
Totally.
So you have, what was it, 30 something
Yeah.
for moms and then 9% for dads?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have
but was it all the moms responding, or were their dads questioned too?
That's
Did you-
We
also
did have
a very-
males respond to that.
Oh, you did.
And they were like, hell no, I did not do that. Just kidding.
They were like, oh, it was definitely shared
that's
effort
my
for
response.
sure.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, they
Clearly
were like,
my response.
for sure, like, I participated in that. It was Brad. He
I'd like,
Brad voted
like to
multiple
see-
times.
I'd like to see the sleep training one. Like that's another.
Oh, that's
interesting
another
topic.
one.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Can't do it.
I don't hear
I did
kids
not do
sleeping,
it.
so
Can't
my
do it.
sleep training is sleeping through the kids screaming.
Drives
bloody
me
murder.
absolutely nuts because he can just sleep through it. The instant our kids make a peep, I'm up, and then I hate to listen to them cry.
But one of our kids,
That's so
Don't you
me.
just send Giorgio in?
Giorgio, it's time for him to
he is
slouch.
sound asleep. He is sound asleep.
his hands, they get tired. The magic Giorgio
But, like,
hands.
do you feel like that's been tough, like, for you two to navigate, like, gender roles based on kind of what your upbringing was? Or
Well, what were you going to say?
Okay,
I think
here-
two
here's
different topics.
different answers right here.
Here's my take on it. Brad is really good to jump in and do whatever.
Nothing.
No, whatever. Like, Like, for instance, I know some women who can't take a break. Like, I went on a girls' trip over the weekend. I know some women who they cannot leave their husband with the kids because their husbands can't handle it. I don't ever have that problem. Like, I know I can easily, like, hey, I'm going on a girls' trip, 5 days, you've got the kids, and he'll take care of it. I also know.
Is it because I live behind you guys as
it's
well?
definitely
Hey,
you.
Ty,
For
can
sure,
you,
Ty.
Ty, can you babysit for about 3 days?
I got PB&J. Come on over, Scotty.
Well, my kid
won't eat that.
my kid won't eat either 3 of those items in that meal.
We won't even lick the
If
bread.
you have a jar of Nutella and a spoon, she's good. But
Yeah, she'll survive off that.
All right,
But
I'm
so
no
like
help.
there's good things with that where Brad's really good at that. And there's great things where like some days on the weekend, like he'll come down and see like the kitchen counter's a mess and he's good to just, I don't need to tell him to do things. And then there's times where I think it's the communication thing. I think we both get to the point where we're overwhelmed in life and in work.
clean the
And
effing house.
I get that way because when my house is a mess and I'm already overwhelmed, that throws me into another, like I need it to be clean so that I feel like I can think clearly for some reason.
Yeah,
For sure.
And so there's times where I have the meltdown of like, do you not fucking see that the house is a mess and I'm stressed out and I'm overwhelmed and I can't fucking handle it all?
And honestly,
Here.
no.
So
I know.
No,
So,
like
Whitney,
literally, like this
Whitney
is
and I are
literally-
very similar in
Yes.
this matter.
We've had
Like,
this exact same.
the house
thing.
has to be clean and it has to be put to bed at night and everything has to be in its place.
Not every
But-
night, but at least once a month.
But there's times where I have the same
You
situation.
guys go to bed
Whitney, where
angry, don't you?
Justin can walk through the room and be like, "What are you stressing over? Like the
Yes.
house is clean." I'm like, "Look at all this shit everywhere. Like
You
it's
see that
not."
one crumb over there? That's crazy.
And we
real.
have
But for real.
different
I know.
levels of
How many
Cleanliness.
cleanliness
like,
or
comfortability,
observation
like,
of what we see and what we don't
Curry,
see.
how many times a week do you utilize the vacuum?
Let's not go there.
Can I
I
jump in
told
here?
Whitney we need a
Curry keeps
throuple and we
his-
need to find a curry.
My backpack
without
vacuum
benefits.
gets used.
I'm going
at
to
least.
jump in here.
Sure.
I think there's another term for
I
that.
will
but
do.
won't.
I will do.
When there's
I will do
no
health
one,
benefits. That's it.
when there's no one else, though, I don't know what it is. Like I just rise to the occasion.
Because you don't have anyone else. This is the thing, though.
And when it
you
gets-
don't have anyone else to fall back on. So
Yeah.
sometimes, and this is, I think, where especially women get to the point where they're like, it would be easier if I was on my own and I don't have to take care of one more person. So I'm getting that divorce because my husband is not around to help me out. He's not doing, like, it's another kid to take on. It's another
explains
mental
it.
load.
That
and so
happened.
they are. They're like, you know what? At this point,
I
I
don't
might
think
as well
that's
be
what
on my own
happened,
because
but-
then I don't have to think like, well, hopefully he'll come home and see that all the dishes are piled in the sink and he'll help me with one thing, or
Okay.
hopefully he'll see
Yeah.
these things. And it's like, you know what? I'm done. I won't even have to worry about somebody else coming in and hoping they'll help me out. I just know I have to do it. And it's easier.
Or acknowledge what I've done all day.
Yeah.
Like that I've been sitting here
Have
all
you
day dealing
noticed-
with this and I just need someone to validate it.
Have you
Yes.
noticed in the last 6 months to a year any difference in my participation?
Yeah. I feel like you've stepped it up and you've really helped out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What changed?
But
What are
don't
we-
you think
what are
Yeah,
we
he wants a gold
going?
star.
Brad, what
What is the source of this pride?
Yeah, what is
we're-
this
we're
coming from?
Hearing?
No, I made a non-New Year's resolution.
Here we go.
On January 2nd. Thank you very much.
June 23rd, I decided, well, it was probably 6 months ago, a year ago, I don't know, somewhere in there. I was like, I obviously need to, it was one of those episodes, right? So,
One of my breakdowns.
That's what we
So-
call them, episodes.
Episodes.
Whitney's using the F word.
so we have a cleaner come every 2 weeks. And she does like deep cleaning of like baseboards, bathrooms, stuff like that.
Yep.
And so for me, it was a contention because I'm like, we're paying this person to come clean our house. Let's have them clean the house. But it turned into hey, every day before the cleaner comes,
We gotta clean.
I
We
want to
freak
make
out.
sure that everything's picked
we
up.
clean out, we clean the damn house.
Yeah.
Well, hold
And
on.
so I'm like, okay,
This comes
I
back
get
to
it.
the
I get
level
it.
of cleanliness because I'm not asking anyone to like, I don't need you to wipe down counters. I don't need you to clean out the microwave. Like, I'm not asking for that kind of stuff, but I'm asking you to everyone pick up your shit off of the floor. The person that's coming doesn't need to do that. Like, we can do that. And they're coming to just deep clean stuff that I don't want to spend time doing.
Right.
I would pay that person.
He would totally be happy if someone literally came in, did all the laundry, did the dish, like leave everything on the floor and let that person come in and pick it up. And I'm like, I'm not going to pay someone to do the shit that we can do. Like, I'm going to pay someone to come in and scrub our shower and tub because I don't want to spend my time doing that.
Right.
So it
but we
turned
can
into
all pick up our stuff.
Every other Monday night, putting the kids to bed and then just a mass cleaning and anger. So every other Monday night, we were going to bed angry.
Well, one of us was going to bed angry.
But like if you
It was probably me. It was the 3 days before that Whitney was going to bed angry.
I get it.
And
so you stepped it up, huh?
So I was like, all right, I'm sick of this shit. Like, I hate fighting.
You have to change your attitude.
But like, again, though, that takes having conversations with each other because you grew up, well, I admit,
I grew up with like a spotless house.
And I also,
who did the
I
work?
also grew up with my mom doing
Kids and
everything.
mom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I grew up with my
100%.
mom doing everything.
That's exactly
I grew
how
up
Brad
like
did.
most of my friends' moms spoiled them and literally did everything for them. So
we
You
did
can,
it as
like-
kids. Like we were the, like you have kids
I
clean your
would
house and work on the farm.
Love to ask your mom this question.
Ask the siblings. They would probably be.
I think you guys had
the
chores
one
and you
older-
did
the
stuff,
one
but
older
your mom
sibling at
was
this
still
point, but
probably in charge of a lot that got done.
yes, we did laundry. Yeah, we did a lot of shit. We had 5 kids. We had 5
yeah,
kids.
see, we did nothing around the house.
We did.
Like my mom
We did
did
things
everything around the
here
house,
and there.
we worked out on the farm.
my mom.
Like,
My mom made dinner.
yeah.
My mom made dinner every night. But we, as the kids, we did all of the vacuuming, the floor mopping, the laundry,
Oh, wow.
the bathrooms. We did literally everything.
Well, see, growing up, we had chores like that too. Like you had the kitchen, which meant you swept and mopped and you did the dishes and wiped everything down, or you had the bathroom, or.
wow.
But I feel like those were hit or miss. Like it would be like
This
a
was
couple months of like, hey, you
every
have these chores,
single-
and then they kind of wane off, and then back to like, hey,
every
you
single
guys have these
Saturday.
chores.
Curry, did you
See, we
have to
had-
dust the
The
jackets on the
statues.
leather books in the library?
The gargoyles.
We did have our
when
Saturday morning chores.
gym equipment.
Polishing the silverware, leave me alone.
We did have our definite Saturday morning. You are not doing anything until this is done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice.
You will clean the bathroom, you will clean your room, and we will check under your bed to make
Wow.
sure
Wow.
nothing is under your bed.
Yeah,
Oh,
and your
yeah.
closet.
Yeah,
That was us.
absolutely.
That was us every weekend.
But yet, going back to the gender roles, is that was all my mom's responsibility to oversee, while my dad was outside,
Which is still a mental load for your mom.
yeah
On Saturday.
again,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
a break, and my dad was outside doing whatever he was doing or working or whatever, and it was still her responsibility to make sure we did what was necessary to get the house clean.
That's interesting because, so similar story. My mother, my parents owned a cabin when we were growing. Well, when we first had small families, right? 2 or 3
more
kids
of a
apiece.
mansion in the wood. I mean,
Well, no, it was, but we would go up to the cabin, and I remember my mom would start cooking, and she wouldn't stop until we left. Because after everybody ate, then she'd clean up, and then it was time to start prepping the next meal
next
or
meal,
whatever.
yeah.
And that's all she did up there, and I felt so bad.
That's literally
really good
all my
vacation
mom
for
did
her.
growing up. Like that's how I.
Yeah,
That's
she
how
did.
your mom still is.
That's how my mom still is. That's true.
the moment we arrive,
Even
she
though no
goes
one's
to the
there,
kitchen.
she still is literally in the kitchen.
But
all day
here's
long.
the crazy thing. I honestly believe my dad totally expected that.
Probably.
Well,
Probably.
So here's my question: is what's the difference then between gender roles and personalities, and what you see and what makes you comfortable and thrive versus what a gender role is? Because like for us, there isn't a gender difference,
Right.
ooh.
And so for Justin and I,
Spoiler alert.
it's like there are
He
things
takes
that
care of me. I'm just another kid.
just another kid in the house.
Tends to happen. It tends to happen.
This is teenager upstairs.
But there's like things that I don't enjoy.
What don't you
I
enjoy?
will wait as long as I can to shovel the driveway in the
Yeah.
winter. I
That
do
snow's
not
heavy.
want to go out and
Should
do
be
that.
That should be Justin's job.
And so I will wait as long as I can in hopes that he'll come home and do it.
And I do. I love it.
Whitney, and
But he
that's
loves
the
that.
same.
He's
That's the
used to
same in our
working out on the
relationship.
farm, you
That's
know?
the same
Like
in our
I love
relationship.
it. Yeah, totally. I love being outside and like
Whitney went out and
Yes.
tried like one shovel, and she's like, "Yeah, screw this."
It was
No,
so heavy,
that
you guys.
last
I was
storm
like,
was
well,
horrible.
it was so wet.
I'm
I'm like,
with you,
well, that's
Whitney.
not happening. But this actually brings up a very interesting. Here's the opposite of. I mean, we've been talking about the inside and the kids and all that.
Yeah.
The outside is
who
kind of
takes
Brad's
care-
job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not
You
that
just-
I won't go out.
you
I
done
would
with
go
the
out
garden
and
yet?
mow.
And mow,
I'll
yeah.
go out and mow if I need to, but I'm also like usually. Brad, plug your
when
ears.
Have you needed to.
Plug your ears. I will go out and mow the yard if I know that there's something I want to go do on Saturday, and he's going to say I need to
Oh,
mow
we're
the
doing-
yard
oh, yeah,
first.
that's nice.
Then it's not an excuse.
You've
so
only wanted to do something once in your life.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Just
Every other time I've thought about it, I'm like, not worth it. Not worth it.
Not worth it.
which one's worse?
So that is kind of, I mean, that's the opposite. Like, I do kind of expect him to take care of the yard outside.
is the
I
garage
agree.
clean? Is the
So-
garage clean and the lawnmower?
Justin mows the lawn, and I'm like, that is your thing.
Do you love it? 'Cause
Saturday
Brad
morning,
loves it.
I
you
love
go
it.
out and mow
I
the
love
lawn.
being
that's
outside.
that's my like solace, right?
Yeah.
there.
Occasionally I'll
Put
do
on
it,
music
but it's
or
never the
silence.
same
Well,
thing.
Brad, but maybe on Wednesday you should say to Whit, maybe I ought to go mow the yard
If you wanna go do something, you should mow the yard.
Saturday.
While
He would be
I'm
sad if I
folding
took that job away
clothing-
from him.
Oh, that's
I
true.
would be. Like when we were building, we moved in with Whitney's parents, and it was like a fight between myself and Whitney's dad of like who's going to mow the lawn. Like he'd get up there, I'm like, shit. I'm like, that's what I was planning on doing today. As like that's my like safe space. I go out there, and I don't have to think about anything. I can't hear my phone. I can't feel my phone. I'm away from everything.
Yeah, you put in your headphones and you're in
And
another
your tank
world.
top and your straw hat, and you're
Yeah.
just out
Yeah.
there.
Exactly. Ty's seen him a
My
time or
cutoff.
two.
Oh, yeah. I live right behind you.
My cutoff.
Ty's watching.
I did buy a
Hey,
cowboy
there's
hat.
Brad.
I did buy a cowboy hat this last year. Though.
So what I'm hearing, Brad, is you get your alone time out there. You have this time just to enjoy yourself.
Just like
Meanwhile,
the same-
Whitney's still inside chasing the kids
No,
around.
she's
Scrubbing
inside. She's having her alone time with the laundry basket. Like we both get our alone time.
Yep.
Like the grass basket or just the laundry basket.
We're discussing it. We're not digging pits.
Okay, something you said earlier, I think is the
You is
biggest
Curry.
issue. Yes, use Curry. Sorry, no one at home can see me point to Curry. You said that you sometimes all we want is just validation for what we've done, and I feel
Absolutely.
that so deep in my soul because a lot of some of the things that we do, like the mental load of like running the kids everywhere and just keeping tally of like what's going on, where everyone needs to be, and all that, like. It's not always a seen thing of what's going on.
Right,
and sometimes I just want the validation of like, hey, did you notice that I did the dishes today and I got everyone where I was supposed to, like where they were supposed to be? And like, I just want someone to say like, you did it. Good job. Or, you know, like,
absolutely.
I am
Absolutely.
100% guilty of taking advantage of that and
So
not
words-
recognizing that.
So Whitney,
I think
is
it's easy to not though.
love language of words of affirmation. I am not the best at words of affirmation.
yeah.
I
not
would
the
say,
best.
Whitney, there's times where, yes, being home and being in that role to kind of navigate everything that where Justin comes home and I'm like, I just need a hug. Like, I just need
Yep.
30 seconds for you to focus on me.
Hug
Yeah.
me, pour me a
Be-
glass of
Someone-
champagne.
Someone take care of me.
The kids come in and they realize you're home and then you're off with them. I just need that moment. And I do think that's times where I'm like, yeah, I just need to be validated for what's happened.
Yes. And
And
realize
what
that
I've
maybe
gone
I've
through
had
in
a
the
hard
last
day
6
or
hours.
today's been, it's been a lot. Just like focus on me for a few minutes.
And I am
that's
happy,
it.
and I am happy to do that every time.
It just has
that-
to be verbalized.
But like, I am not that way. So I don't set, like, it's just, I don't like, does that make sense?
Yep.
But the
And that's
moment
the
he
difference.
says, hey, I need a hug, I will be there for him and I will. It's just, I don't read it like the same
Well,
way.
it's
Does
not
that make
your,
sense?
it's not your thing.
Will
Yeah.
you give me a compliment?
Well, and that's half the time I'm like, I need a
Yes,
hug.
and then
he's
half
like,
the time it's like, I don't
I'm like, never mind. I don't need one. I don't need one anymore.
really want to do that. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Okay, so I've got a solution to this. Me, being the software guy, I'm going to write something so that you can tell those little Amazon devices, you can just say, Alexa, I just finished doing the laundry. And she'll be like, way to go. That is awesome.
Oh, she
Would you
sends
like
me
a
I love
hug?
you songs every day.
I'm like,
And we'll use technology to give ourselves our validation that we're looking for.
That's
And then
Oh,
here
okay.
I thought you were.
Pat-
we want it from our
Pat- Pat-
partners.
Here I thought
Pat-
you were going to say that you were going to create something I could say, Alexis, give me a hug.
Oh,
And then like someone would knock on my door.
they just
A
show
neighbor.
up.
It just sends
You
the
DoorDash.
notice to a neighbor.
Can I DoorDash
Hurry
a
really
hug,
needs a hug
please?
right now.
It's really awkward. Can I specify which neighbor knocks on the door?
It's a group text. It's a group text.
I
that gets
feel like
sent
this
out.
is going to lead to
Wait,
something
what?
else.
Yep.
Are we-
Yep. Ooh, Alexa, send that one back. But
All right,
I
bad
do
idea.
think
I'm
like,
full of them.
there is that communication though. It goes back to the acknowledgement of, and to give Justin credit in our relationship of, he is going to work. He's missing the things that the kids are doing. He's missing the activities, all these things, and that kind of connection time. So to give him a little bit of the validation too of like coming home, he does want to go connect with the kids. He does want to do that. But yeah, it's like, where am I in this?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's kind
I'm
of
jumping into the middle of everybody's days and what they already have going on and the flow
Yeah.
of the household.
I think that's that communication of like, this is what I need. This is where I need you to meet me right now.
Yeah. And that's not always easy. Like a lot of times that's a hard thing to be able to vocalize of like, hey, I need you to tell me every once in a while that I look pretty. Just so like I know that you're still attracted to me. Or I need you every once in a while to just come home and give me a hug. Or I need do you know what I mean? Like
right.
because
I
a lot of
totally
those
know what
things
you mean,
don't
but,
look
like-
don't come
And then
natural
I-
to your
I would
partner.
not
It's
like-
not
to
if
do.
Curry
Curry
walked
walked
up
up
to
to me. He was like,
Tell me I'm pretty.
tell me I look pretty.
And I was like,
Which is why I never asked for it.
because I'm always like, oh, what's up, sexy? She's like, screw you.
Yeah.
No,
I
I'm
would
just like,
regret it.
okay, well,
Get outta
obviously,
here,
if you
kid.
want sex, it's not just that I look good today.
I agree, Whitney. Like, it's not worth it. It's not worth
Half the time,
vocalizing.
it's that's a hard thing to vocalize. That I also don't want to fish for compliments. Like I just,
yeah.
I want them.
yeah, I want them to like come naturally and seem genuine instead of me saying like, "Give me a compliment right now."
Yeah.
Like,
But I'd be curious at
Look at
like
those crisp
how normal
corners on
that,
those shirts.
like maybe that's our perception of what we
Yeah.
feel like would make us feel good. But how normal is that?
Well, I
happen.
think it's,
Does that
I think
make
it's
sense?
normal
Like,
Yeah.
because a lot of like social media and influencers and stuff, they'll do like the little funny, at least that's what I'm getting, is it's like, not all the time, but you'll see like an influencer, they'll go in there and like the husband will do laundry and be like, hey, he'll be pointing at the laundry on the bed folded. She's like, oh, what
the
are you
attaboy.
pointing at?
yeah,
like,
definitely wants the gold star
just
for like.
So he's like fishing
What
for that
do I
compliment,
get
right?
for
Of like, look what
that?
look
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
did. She's like, oh yeah, do you need help putting the laundry away or something like that? Like I usually put it away myself.
Yeah, and
Do
you don't
need
even
help?
recognize it.
Do you
I've
need
done
help?
that
And he's like,
15
"Well, screw
times
that."
this week.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's pretty common with, and I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's gender role or what it
Human,
is.
being human.
Yeah,
yeah.
And
definitely.
differences. No, totally.
Right.
That's I think that's a big point though of like we all have ingrained in us from a very young age of what that perception is. And the reality is that's never how it is. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
if you can't talk and like communicate through it, then it's hard to figure that out. And I think that that's changing. Like I think that people are starting to communicate more about their needs.
So do you think it's an actual communication? Like, is that something that couples are communicating better? Or is it the blow ups that I occasionally have? Like, get off your phone and get over here and help me wash the dishes.
I think it's, I do think it's a
Damn,
lot.
girl.
Calm down.
Called out.
Yes.
But do you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like,
But in a way, that is a form of communication.
Well,
But
I
is
feel like
there
it's a lot of
healthier
times
communication?
that.
something positive. Like,
Everything's a form of communication.
totally.
I feel
But
like
a lot
some
of people just
have those
bottle that up and don't even
say anything. And
anything.
it's resentment because I
Totally.
was like that in my first
Totally.
marriage.
They
for
don't
sure.
feel like they can.
I was just gonna say, like,
They don't feel like they
It
can
always-
say that.
yeah,
Yes.
it always boiled over, and that's when
100% it
the
does.
communication was happening, or at least it was being understood.
Yeah, it wasn't a healthy
But it was too
communication.
late.
It was
Exactly.
by
It was
that
way
point
too
you're
late.
so angry
At
and
that
so
point, it's not
resentful of this
healthy.
person who, how do you not see the dishes that need to be done or the kids that need a bath, or like, how are you not seeing this?
Yeah.
You know, and instead of just saying like, I need help, like the kids need a bath, there's dishes in the sink, like we need to tackle this together, especially the first little while. Like I feel like once you start having those communications more regularly, like I need help. I mean, you guys maybe can
You find
talk
much
about this.
healthier
Like,
ways to do it.
yes, and maybe it will open their eyes to like, oh yeah, the kids take a bath every night at this time. Like I should probably help with that. Maybe not, but I feel like the more you communicate with that stuff, maybe the more it sticks with somebody.
Do our kids bathe?
Very rarely.
There's a
When they have a bath bomb.
What am I missing?
Yeah. Which then you have to clean later, Whitney.
Yes.
understood it, so they were more observant, and they realized when the dishes got done that mom was in a better mood, so they started jumping in and doing that.
My kids do not have that thought.
I have yet to have that happen myself. But
Yeah.
as far as just doing the job that I want done rather than asking for it to be done and waiting 3 days for it not to get done, I just do it. And
This is an
harboring the
argument that Brad and I
frustration.
have a lot.
But
and it's done,
also,
and then I'm
Yeah,
happier,
you harbor
so.
the frustration for 3 days until it gets done.
And it gets worse and worse, and then,
And then
you're
you
just
just do
making
it.
them mad,
Doesn't that
right?
just
Or
feel
sad.
good?
or-
Bradley.
What?
No, this is an
No.
argument that Brad
This
and I
is
have
an
a lot
argument.
with
So
our
I just
kids.
do it. I mean, obviously, it's a little different situation. I think with this, well, as I remember, you know, I was living with somebody for a little while recently, but it's a little different dynamic
Yeah.
between you and the kids and you and the spouse, right? And the significant other or whatever. So I'm acknowledging that for sure, but I just doggone it, that 17-year-old son of mine, you know, that has the dishes all down in his room all the time. So now when I go down and work out, I'm just like,
You
I'm
just
just
grab
going to
it
go
for him.
through his room and grab
Yeah.
the dishes because that'll make me happy. So I do
Yeah.
it.
but I also think though, again, the same thing with when we have to communicate with our spouse. Like we have to communicate with our kids what our expectations are of them.
And what if they don't give a shit?
See, that's my issue. So in my career at this point, and for the last while, been in a leadership position, and so every day, all day, my job is to make sure employees are doing their thing. You give them a task or they have a job. If they don't do it, they're failing. You write them up. If they keep failing, you fire them.
But not only that, I think the
Or
way you
terminate
were
them.
raised plays a huge role into that at home as well. Because you guys were
Well,
expected to
it's-
do a lot of
That
chores
too, that
and
too,
stuff.
but 10 hours a day, if somebody's not meeting expectations, they're failing behind their curve.
Is the opposite true, though? Do you acknowledge successes
No.
as well?
At work
I have
or
a
at
hard-
home?
I have a hard time at home doing that.
Very hard time.
You know, that's one
Some,
thing.
some of my stuff, like
It's interesting you say that.
so, when I do like employee evaluations at work,
Yes.
Do we need to have a yearly family?
I think so.
No,
think
I
so,
would
because
Is this
hate
when you
that.
the
have
bell
a
curve,
people
the
go
bell
on
curve's
to
going to be
work
very low.
Thanksgiving?
So I like when I grade employees, I say, hey, here's the thing. Like, here's what you're graded on, 1 through 5. And I'm like, most people are going to be a 3. These are everybody that does their job description. You come to work, you do your stuff, you do it well, you do it right. That's the bare minimum.
Sure.
That's a 3.
Ugh, you're one of
But
those.
but
It creates the bell
I did
curve.
my
and
job.
nobody gets a 5.
It
No,
does.
just
It
kidding.
does the bell curve, which that's what raises are based on. Like you're going to get graded not harsher, but you're not going to get as good of a raise as the person that went above and beyond.
Yes, but here's where I think your childhood also plays a part in this, because we have kids. They're not adults. They don't think like adults. They're kids. Their brains are
My
still
little home employees.
they're still developing. Like they don't understand, and they are going to give you pushback on stuff.
Right.
Like
So
they're
I think
not
back when I was 8 years old, I was
full formed adults who
cleaning-
understand.
It's true. And then
So this is where your
and this is where my
childhood comes
is.
in, because you're like, well, we were expected to do this,
When I
probably
was
because
8
your
years
dad
old-
had the same
When I was
mentality.
8 years old, we all you had a dish day, which meant you did every single dish, unloaded the dishwasher, did every single dish. You helped mom with dinner. And then on the weekends, you all had your chores, with it was bathrooms or mopping or vacuuming or laundry.
And where this comes into an issue with us is because I will do, Ty, what you said. Like, I'll ask so many times of
I
like,
don't
hey,
want to fight, and I'll just do it for the kids. So our kids do
it's,
literally nothing.
yes, here's the thing. It gets to the point where I'm like, I want it done, so I'm going to do it, because I can get it done in 10 minutes, where it's going to take 2 hours of complaining from the kids.
And sobbing
And
fighting.
yeah,
And
I don't
going
want to
and
do
finding
it.
them
And
in
then
the
they're
other
in a bad
room
mood. We're all
because
in a
they've
bad
already
mood. We're all
left.
angry by that point, and I could have done it in 10 minutes and had it done the way I wanted. Now, on the flip side of that, I know that's not teaching my kids anything.
Sure.
I know that I'm not helping them
shit.
grow into functioning adults because I'm doing it. Like, they're not learning how to sweep the floor or how to properly clean a bathroom or all that stuff, because it's easier for me to just do it. You know what I mean? Like, I get that there's a pro and a con to that. And at some point I've got to relinquish some of this, because they have to learn to do these before they go out into the world.
So what do you think the solution is there? Is it to
Just let them raise
define-
themselves and just leave.
to define the consequence maybe and say,
There is
if
no
this doesn't get
consequences, that's the problem.
and
Well, that's what he's saying.
it's a two-sided thing too, right? It's saying there's a consequence and going through with it. That's where I fail. I'll be like, Lennox, you're not playing video games unless this gets done.
We are not
And as
going
soon
to
as-
the
Come on,
movies. We
Dad
are
wants to play
definitely-
video games. Let's go.
Yeah,
You
and as soon as they know that
immediately
they
it's
can get
done.
away with it, they're not going to.
Yes. So
That's what the expectation is. Right now.
but that's human nature, right? That we all did that as kids, and
But with kids, it takes the praise side.
we just can't hit our
things,
kids like
too.
our parents
Well-
could hit us.
Yeah. True.
yeah. And I think that number one, no one is perfect in this.
Oh no.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like we are all just trying to do our best. Like I truly think that most people are trying to do what they feel is right. Does that make sense?
Right.
Well, and I think people
everybody
like-
has different parenting styles,
Yes,
different
right.
ways of
Yeah.
connecting,
Yes.
different
and different
And that's-
emotions of kids.
and different
our
abilities.
kids are different than us.
Person.
Yeah.
And
It's like,
every
absolutely,
kid has
yeah.
a different
'Cause that's-
personality and
Yes.
needs to be handled differently.
Totally
Yes.
different.
And that's where we
Absolutely.
kind of fight, right? And I think that's where some of my career stuff comes into play, where I'm like, when she's like, you got to praise the kid. I'm like, oh, congratulations for doing the bare minimum. You loaded the dishwasher.
Oh, for real. That is
Congratulations.
literally his attitude.
house.
Right? And that's why our kids, like, especially the older one, doesn't want to do shit, because she's like, I don't get anything. And it's like, oh, well, you did the bare minimum. Like, there
And
isn't
then
a
if she
praise
did
for
do
doing
something
it.
that wasn't like, hey, you
Good job.
like,
Hey,
job.
good, thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Good job.
I
No,
can-
it's
Good
just
job
like, well,
for
you
doing
did.
what I asked you to do. Like,
That's the attitude, and that's a problem.
Well, I think it's hard to get kids to do something when they don't feel a connection. Like, and I think that's actually human.
yeah. Well,
Does
I
that,
think
we
there's
as
multiple
humans,
areas of the problem, because it's me not praising and then the kids not being held accountable for anything.
yeah,
Yeah, but I do think if you started praising some things, they want more. Kids
There's
want
a
to do good.
they can
There's
build
a
on
reason to do it.
from their parents.
Yes,
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, Brad recognized me in doing that. Brad, like, okay, so the next time he asks, like, I want to do that again, so like he's not upset with me. He'll be,
Well,
you know.
then that's the thing. They've
This
got
is
to
a big,
feel a
this is
little
big
bit of
topic
success.
for all of
And saying you just did the bare minimum, that's not acknowledging success. It's like you've almost hit like zero.
We've successed
You've been in the
at zero.
negative, but
Well, and I think that comes back to finding how your kids communicate, how you communicate with your kid, how they communicate with
That's
you,
true.
and figuring out.
Yeah, 'cause they're
we
all
have
different, right?
tasks. We want our kids to help us around the house. We want them to learn, like you said, Whitney,
we want to raise good humans.
to raise good humans, to be able to live on their own, clean the bathroom,
Yeah.
like hygiene. But if we don't learn our children and learn how they communicate and learn how
they need to
their
feel loved
language
too.
is,
Yes.
Well, I think-
and how to entice them to do it. Like I can ask our 8-year-old to do one thing, and how I ask totally determines the outcome
Yep.
Yeah.
and
this
how
is-
I approach it. But I can ask the 3-year-old to do it, and it's a totally different
'cause
communication.
this is
Definitely.
society in general, right? Like
Oh,
my,
yeah.
my method is what our legal system is, right?
Which
Do
is
something
totally
Which is
wrong.
totally
functional.
filling.
Well, right,
yeah.
right. Well, right. Well,
Which is
nobody else has come up with
non-emotional.
anything better at this point. Well, they're trying, but I mean, my thing.
I think
is,
there's a lot of better options.
Well, right. Hear me out. So right now, if you don't do what you're supposed to and you're breaking the law, so to speak,
There's a consequence.
there's a consequence. What is the consequence? We take your rights away, right? We take things away from you. We take away your freedom. We give you less. We put you in jail or prison.
But once
Right.
again,
but-
those are fully functioning adults.
I guess I would ask.
Well, I'm just saying this is society in
Right,
general.
but I would ask, is that changing behavior by treating it that way?
That's why I'm saying
is it
it's
making
society
behavior?
where you guys are
Yeah.
saying like other countries are doing. Well, there's more rehab type facilities versus prison or jail.
Right.
My
More
style right
education.
now, and
Right,
I guess how I
education.
was raised and everything else, is more of the prison jail style.
But it's not working.
No,
But-
totally,
but-
and that's where I think the
And I
communication
don't want
comes
to
into play.
invalidate that.
Because
Right. Well, there needs to be a mixture of both. I think.
and-
there
and
has
not-
to be
I don't think one
consequences
answers
to
the other.
things.
To Curry's point, it's about the child. Sometimes,
We're talking about society right now. Ty.
but sometimes the threat of a consequence is enough motivation.
Oh,
But sometimes
shit in our
the
house.
promise of a benefit is a better motivation for that for
Yes.
a particular child.
Well, and coming into
Yep.
the play of, so with our 8-year-old, I'm like, you need to get your room cleaned before this happens. And sometimes all it takes is me standing in the room with her to be there while she cleans the room. And she'll clean it in 2 minutes. But if I send her up to clean a room on her own, it
feels
is a
distraction
fight.
city.
It's
Yeah.
a 30-minute. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
But all she needs is me to stand in there for 2 minutes. And I've learned that with her of like,
Nice.
I have an expectation of you, but that expectation comes at a cost of me standing here for 2 minutes to help you process where to start.
Yeah. I do think it's a starting thing. But to your point, Ty, like I was that child growing up. You can ask my parents. Like they wanted me to clean my room. You could not get me to clean my room if I didn't want to. Like they would threaten to ground me. They would threaten to take things away. They would offer to pay me. If I didn't want to do it, you weren't getting me to do
Yeah,
it until
there's
I
nothing.
was ready. It wasn't happening. And
So
my
that's
parents talk about
learning
how
the child,
frustrated,
right?
yeah, like how frustrating that was. And as I got older, things like that got better. But
yeah.
I was a different child than some of the others. Like you just could not get me to do it if I didn't want to.
But I do think that going like communication of, I mean, sometimes it's a little harsh, but like the other day I told Curry, I was like, Curry, if I was a little kid in your household, I don't know that I could survive.
What?
Welcome to our
it makes
household.
sense. Like
That was
Yes.
the actual
sometimes, like,
communication.
the perfection that is expected because of his upbringing. And that's where I think it's important to like recognize
I'll
that
take 25%. Like I'll take 25%.
like, but honestly, like I picture myself as a little kid in my own kids. And I'm like, okay, like we've got to work through this. Cause does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
we got, and it's the same way. There's things that he says that are about me. You know what I mean? Like, and I do think there is this level of just understanding that we are programmed and that's okay. We just got to like communicate and work with each other on that.
When I think the communication is a good reset of me of like, oh, check myself. Like I need to check myself in this moment of what my expectation is versus my child's ability.
I'm glad that
yeah.
you're able to check yourself, because when I bring it up to Brad, it makes him dig his heels in even more and push that. Like when I'm like, hey, you need to back up, like stop. Like you're being a dick right now like you need to stop. And it's just like, you think I'm being a dick? Watch me be a dick now. You know, it's like,
for how
it's
many
not a
years
check.
do I gotta make
He
this
doubles
comment?
down.
Yes.
How many years do I got to make this comment to make?
And then he starts being like passive aggressive with facts and stuff.
Yes. And it's so bad. And then it makes our
The next thing you want to do
teenager
is
not want
resolutions on
anything to do with
January
him.
1st, aren't you?
It makes our teenager not want anything to do with him.
Yeah.
But I think that's
For
the hard part
gender
too of like,
roles, I mean, this has really gone off topic.
no, but I think that goes back
it
to
goes
the gender
back
role.
to,
As
like-
part is
Partnerships, really, right?
responsible
It's like-
for
For
doing this,
parenting?
and it should be
How the
a
household
joint
operates.
communication of
And learning how to
keeping each other in
communicate
check.
with each other.
No,
in that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and each other and the
And the
children,
kids.
and keeping each other in check, where it's not one person's responsibility.
I had a great experience with this sort of thing a few months ago when I had some little people living here.
How did that go?
Their mom was amazing and always sprucing things up and making me feel really guilty and kind of like I was not rising to the occasion at that time because I had this extra help, right? And there was a Saturday morning where the three little boys, they love to play Fortnite. And so I was like, well, here's what we're going to do. We'll play a game of Fortnite and then we'll go do a job that your mom wants us to do. And then we'll play a game. When the job's done, we'll go play a game and then we'll ask what the next job is.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went back and forth and we didn't do a lot of tasks. We did
Yeah.
like 6 or 7 different things, but they were engaged in that. Like they were excited. It was like, okay, the motivation to get this job done as quickly as possible and help out, and it was,
Yeah.
okay, now we're going to make the beds. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So we do that. Okay, now we're going to get all of our dirty clothes and put them in the laundry. It was just simple things like that because they're pretty young boys. But that was so much fun. Like that, to your point about like being connected.
Yeah.
But I
like,
think
that
that's
was
right.
that sort of relationship. These weren't my boys, but we really
Finding what you connect on
Yeah, we
and
were
can-
playing the games together, and then it was like, okay, let's hurry and get the job done so that we can go back and play again.
Yeah.
But I think knowing what the task was and finding a way that would connect with them to accomplish the task.
to motivate them. What motivates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
So
and
that was a fun one.
again, like parenting, it is so hard. Like just in general, I think parenting is probably one of the most challenging things I've ever done in life. Just because you want to
Absolutely.
get it right.
Absolutely.
Does
Right.
that make sense? Like
Yep.
you have such a huge impact on these kids, and so I do think like it's hard. But I think with Piper, like I was getting after her all the time, and it just wasn't working, and I could sense the relationship not as strong. Does that make sense? And so that's where I was like, gosh, this isn't worth it to me. So then it was like, okay, I got to connect with her, kind of try to really understand where she's coming from. And I think that's a big part of it too, of just communicating with yourself and with the kids and figuring out what that is.
I think my biggest struggle in that is disconnecting from my upbringing.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Is learning that my upbringing did not serve me well in a lot of cases. And how do I change that model now?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I need to take the task at hand and change a way to accomplish it versus just being like,
It's my
you
way or
will
the
do this.
highway.
Yeah.
You'll do this and that's what we're going to do before anything else. And there's consequences and it's negative and the blow ups.
Right. Because it is usually like, you're going to do this or this
Or
is the
there's a
consequence.
threat.
And so then
Yeah.
it's all like,
Or we're gonna
well, now I don't want to
threaten a
do this at
consequence.
all because it has all turned negative.
Yeah.
Now this is a horrible thing
Yeah.
instead of like, hey, I'm learning a skill or this could be, like these are some things that I need to do and then I could be out the door. Like
Yeah.
it just turns it all into like this negative. Like
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think you said
nobody
earlier,
wants to
too.
help out because these tasks all suck,
Totally. And I think you said it too, Whitney, is like earlier that now that we didn't connect with them, we didn't get the task accomplished. Now it falls back to who's at home
Yep.
to follow through with the consequence. And
Yes.
so it's a bigger burden of like, now I have another thing to deal with where They can't do electronics. They can't
Oh my
do
gosh.
activities. They can't play with their friends.
Yes.
And
Well, if you
now
would
I'm
just get a
stuck-
coloring book out and color with them.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that we have to
But
do
then
now.
I have to do that and
So-
take time out from work
right,
and time
right.
away from everything else to do that. I'm like, sometimes the consequences just are an idle threat because I have no interest in following through with
I
it.
can see
I
that.
just
don't have
talked
time.
to
That's-
my
yeah,
girlfriends
that's
about
what I
this
was
over the
saying.
weekend, and they were saying, a couple of them were saying, my husband always punishes the kids by taking away like electronics. Like, okay, well then you can't have your Switch or you can't have the iPad this week. And she's like, that actually becomes a punishment for me because you're not
Because
home.
then they have to
you
come-
go to work,
they come and ask you
I'm
to
at home
entertain.
and trying to get stuff done, and I could get something done in a half an hour if they could just watch a show. But now I have to carry out a punishment that you forced on us, and it's actually punishing me now.
Then you have kids
So what's the
teasing
solution
kids
to
and
that?
Yeah.
What's the solution then with
Weekend
looking at
punishments.
gender roles and kids and who does what? What is the solution?
Like who
to make
disciplines?
this better?
Well, I think it, like we've said all along, I think it's communication
Yeah,
and knowing
comes back to that.
each child and each person, like knowing your spouse and what they need out of the daily going ons, and then each kid.
Maybe what they're capable of.
What do you mean by that?
Like
Elaborate
what the
on that.
spouse is capable of.
I think I know where you're
Yeah.
going, but
Yeah. Like words of affirmation is very, 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 very difficult for me, obviously.
So find
But I mean,
a different way.
right. That's why I'm saying no.
You
your
used to
spouse.
leave me like
Know your
notes.
spouse. Yeah, we all used to do a lot of stuff. for
Well,
each
I know.
other.
I'm just saying. But I'm just
I'm
saying
out of clean
instead of
clothes. Is that one of Brett's love
no,
notes?
but what
Am I wearing socks for the second day in a row?
What I'm saying though is
gross.
instead of you coming home and saying like, "Oh my gosh, you look so pretty," because that's not going to come natural, leaving a sticky note saying like, "You looked really beautiful yesterday," or leaving, instead of praising Izzy in person, you could leave a note for her saying like, "Hey, good job yesterday." So then you don't get that condescending tone. Like it could just be another form of like,
Good job.
or
What tone are you
3 out of 5.
or sometimes
Good
we just
job.
want to be thought about. So like if you're going to the gas station, pick up a favorite treat of the other person's, or like just like we just want to know that during the day you're thinking about us, and like that's part of the
That connection
validation,
and
right?
validation, absolutely.
That's it. I'm going to bring crumble cookies to you all.
But I'm also going to add, and I think in the sense of, I think it's super common, but to be a step parent, there's also challenges involved in
There
that.
are,
And-
because you already start on a disconnect, right?
Yeah, and you don't know your role.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like I think that there's a big understanding up front of like, or you're trying to figure that out. Does that make sense? And you're still trying to figure out how to communicate in general, usually when you first get married. And so knowing like, where does my place at with, am I a parent? Do I let you make all the decisions? I think that everybody comes in with a different understanding of what that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that there's many step families that do it different, and it's all kind of new. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think
And we
that
had-
boils back to communication
And
too.
we had
right?
like with our child.
Yes.
So we had not only the stepchild thing, we had like we moved in with Whitney's parents right at the beginning, and it was grandma, Whitney's mother, was using my stepchild is like a source of
Well, I think my mom's either felt threatened by you coming in, like she already had a good relationship, so she wanted to kind of be able
was-
to help parent.
I was
dominant.
put as a bad guy from the beginning, where we were living with them, and it was like, hey, you can't wear those shoes to school. I'm taking you to school. I'm saying you cannot wear those shoes to school. Grandma's saying yes, and then it was like, sorry, Brad, your stepdad won't let you wear those. I'm like, well, yeah, she can't wear them because she can't go to she can't go to recess with those shoes on, right? So I had like a purpose behind it, but then it was always something like, hey, don't give her a bunch of candy at 9:00 at night while you're living with grandma. You can have it. Really? So from the get-go at a young age, I was already fighting these battles of evil stepdad.
Yes, but at some point, like there's been so much time, you'd think that there'd be time to change some of that narrative.
That's I was going to say, like, doesn't that almost make you want to prove it wrong to her? Like, I'm not that bad guy. Like, I like,
There's
how do
good
I
cop
connect with? Yeah.
and Brad
yeah.
Cop.
Wow. Wow.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm just accepting.
Well, and sometimes I think it comes down to, it definitely comes down to the way we were raised, because he feels like I'm a pushover when it comes to the kids and stuff. And so then I feel like he feels like he has to double down on things because I'm not going to.
No, I have so many post-divorce wisdom items.
Ty will
right?
start a book club.
Oh my goodness, I should write a book.
Speaking of your divorce, you did say one thing earlier, and it was right when you got divorced, you thought that the divorce was your fault. Is that a common thing?
No,
It seems
it's
like more
kind of the
common is you
opposite.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. 'cause
Yeah,
I was going to
definitely.
mention it earlier.
Yeah,
Because
therapy.
I think all
and
three of you
stuff
kind of
and-
agreed that it was, you guys were thinking it was your fault, which I'm like, I don't think that's the common story.
No, and it's not. And yeah, a lot
think
of
it's usually- it's
therapists
someone
kind of
else's-
guided me through
It's someone else's issue,
letting
and then you
everybody
realize,
own their own stuff, right?
Right.
So, but one of the parallels that I've drawn a lot on, as I've been working through all my shit, is how did I have so much success in management, in business, and in operating the business that was pretty successful. And then how did I have so much failure in my personal life and the family life and whatnot? So I've been trying to apply more of the sort of the business acumen to the personal life. For example, like resolving conflicts. Like I worked with these guys that are engineers, and they all had different personalities, similar to the way my kids have different personalities. I didn't treat, I'll change names, Tom, the same way that I treated Chris, right? And like I approached when there was issues or whatnot, and it was rare, right? So maybe that made it a lot easier. But now when I run into something with Lennox or whatever, I kind of take a step back, and instead of just yelling at him like what happened to me, just reflecting on the upbringing, right? I'm like, okay, this guy is one of the most important guys to me. So I'm going to treat him like he's important, but I'm also going to let him know that he's letting me down.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I need him
could
to
do both.
perform. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, Lennox, what is it going to take? How can I help get your grades to this point? We've fallen behind. We need to be on top of this. It's really important. It's important to me. It's even more important to you. You don't know it yet. So let's come up with a plan to get you to
this point.
To this point, which is how I would handle it in business.
Well, and if we're going to compare business and home life like
Sure.
that, which I think is a great parallel, if you had an employee that you were constantly at odds with, that employee would leave.
True.
Nobody wants
True.
to live in a situation where they feel
That's a
like they're
good point.
undervalued and not respected
That
all the
is
time.
such a good point.
Nobody they would leave.
Yeah.
It's,
But I
They would
think-
leave.
that's
I think-
true. But on the other side of that, like at work, I probably have the best culture out of any other department in 5 hospitals, I would bet. I'd probably put money on that.
That's great.
So the same techniques do not work at home.
Because they're
Are you
different
sure?
personalities.
If those people leave, I said they weren't part of the team. Let's get somebody that fits with the group. And so
But-
it's different.
So
But that's
why,
not
why
an
do they
option.
stay? Why do they stay?
Yeah, why
what,
do they
what
stay?
culture do you think that is that you're creating for them?
So good question.
And tell me
So
this:
I try to
which
mentor-
of your
I try to
employees is
mentor
more
people.
important than Izzy to you? You know what I mean?
Say what?
Are any of those employees more important to you than Izzy is?
No, family is more important. And I preach that.
So
at
that's
work.
like the effort you put in, right? You want this
Yes.
person to succeed.
So
you
we
put that
look at
effort
us,
in.
we look at ourselves just
That's what
like you
I
just
do
said.
with my
Like,
kids.
I look at my success at work is this is my This is my technique for success.
Okay.
You try to bring that back home, and it's not working. I don't know the key to home life success business.
But
I can give you a really good technique on business and how to build culture and how to grow employees. I cannot give you, and it doesn't transfer over to kids.
But I do think it can. I think
I
you
was
can
gonna say
do
the
the
same
same
thing.
communication that you do with your spouse of with your kids individually. It has to be 100%. So with your kids, this is what I feel I'm at, and this is where you're at. Why can't you get to 100%? And every day, every hour, that's going to change.
But I also think
it's
that
hard
starts,
for kids to understand. Like that's
It
so
is,
far over
but
their
you
head.
have to do that. You have to do that as a parent of, hey, this temper tantrum is going to drop you to 10%. How do I get that? I can sit in the room with you and help you process how to put your 3 dirty clothes in the laundry basket.
Yeah.
Let's
And I
do
think
it together.
I think there's always going to be a disconnect between the two.
well, it is a little different,
also-
but
Business-
it takes
business
sitting
and
at the
leader.
table with your child and almost getting on their level. At work, you don't need to get personal with your employees. You don't need to and I get that you do sometimes, but as it comes to like sitting down with your kid and saying, look, what we're doing right now together isn't working. And I'm sorry for my role in that and making this not work out.
Oh, absolutely.
It takes responsibility on your end and saying, how can we move forward to make this a harmonious living environment?
Admitting
How can
fault.
yes.
Admitting when you felt like my
'Cause you want
parents
that at work,
never
too. You want people
admitted
to admit.
that they were not perfect. And so Justin and I have looked at our
Mine
kids
never
and
admitted
said,
that they were wrong.
Yeah.
right,
Yes.
right. And that's where
Exactly.
we've gone to the
Imperfect,
kids where like,
I probably
I've
apologize
blown up.
2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah, we're like, I've blown up on,
my kids.
on our kids, and I've gone back and said, do you know what? I acted inappropriately, or that was not the right response, and I'm apologizing for my role in that.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
And
It's so
it's hard
hard.
to
and I'm
apologize.
working on improving. And,
And
so
it's
my
hard to
kids know
apologize.
I'm not perfect.
Yeah. And it's hard
they
to
cannot be
apologize to
perfect.
someone that you feel like you're supposed to be over and an example to. It almost
Yeah.
makes
Right.
it at first harder to apologize, but it makes them see you also as human. You
And that
make
they
errors
can
and
be
that you're
non-perfect.
safe to go, and
Yes.
say like,
Right.
Yeah.
you both can apologize for things.
Absolutely.
I think also going off your point of coming down to their level, I think we have to understand kids as like how
Their brain
kids
power.
function. Yeah. Are so different than our employees. Our employees are 25, 35, 40 years old or even older. So their ability to react to your techniques is much different than what our 3 or 4 year olds are able to.
And that's, a privilege that I have because my kids are older. That's definitely helped the situation.
Well, that's where my
So-
professional life and my upbringing both come into play.
Oh,
Because I'm
absolutely.
like, well, 8 years old, this is what I was doing.
Yeah.
Every one of my siblings, it wasn't a option.
But maybe at that point it's sitting down with the kids and saying, look, you guys, what we're doing as a household isn't working. I'm taking on the majority of the burden for everything and I'm getting burnt out.
Yeah.
I need you guys to step up. Let's talk about some jobs that you guys can do daily. These are some jobs on the weekend because you guys need to contribute more to the household. But it's having those conversations
Yeah,
instead
of
of just
why.
saying
Like,
and
explaining,
explaining
hey,
the
like,
some
behind the
buy-in from
scenes.
that.
I've been at work
Yeah.
all week, and this is why we do this on this day, and we can listen to some music and connect or
We
whatever.
can try to make
and
it as
then
fun
when
as
we're
we
done,
can.
and yeah,
Yeah. Instead of just saying like, you need to do this.
There's a punishment of you need to clean your bathroom. That's your responsibility. But buy-in from the kid
Yeah.
of
but there are some
need some
days
help.
that like
Everyone's gonna have
I
an attitude.
truly know that if I spend the time with my kid to do something, like that she will do it, but that I literally don't have that in me
Mm-hmm.
to go spend the time to do that. So then it is frustrating. Then it becomes frustrating. Does that make
Nobody's
sense? 'Cause, like, I
perfect.
just
Yeah.
asked you to do that.
Oh, yeah,
but then you also feel the guilt of that your inability in that moment caused your. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's just fascinating. Parenting is just.
But do you feel like your parents
fascinating.
did that with you? Do you feel like they spent the time, or was it this is what
No.
you're required to do?
Nope.
Oh no!
Or they spent the time
They
to help you do
absolutely
it
did
with
not.
you?
They absolutely did not spend time. Like
Did anybody's parents let them be questioned. Like,
No.
why does that need to be done right now?
No.
Because I said so.
Yes.
That was the
bingo.
response.
Yeah.
That was always the
because that's
response.
what
And I've
we
had
do.
to change that response. That was innate in me to start saying to my kids when they hit that age. And I had to consciously think like, I can't keep
I don't
want
wanna
to
say
I
that.
don't want to say. I
'Cause
want
I
them
hated
to
that.
question. I want them to think and want them to use their brain. I
Yes.
don't want to just shut it down and say, I'm the say all.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing with changing that pattern of how our kids are being brought up versus what we were brought up.
Well, I don't think if you shut your kids down on things like that, then they'll feel shut down on stuff that they need to talk to you about.
Well, they won't come to you.
That's
They absolutely
that's
will
exactly
not.
what I'm
Yep.
saying.
If you can't open that line of communication,
Yeah.
You
But I
got
think it
you
comes
got to keep it open, even when it's being a parent and not being, the support parent. It's I need you to get this stuff done
Yeah.
parent.
And I think it comes down to both parents have to buy into that as well. If one
100%.
cannot be the disciplinarian all the time and always
right.
That has to
writing
be a
them,
joint
It
effort.
has to be a joint effort,
Yeah.
or the disconnect comes from one parent and the connection comes to another.
Yeah.
And then you're at odds because you want, as the disconnected parent, you want the connection the other one has as the Disneyland dad or
Yeah.
Disneyland, whatever. Like,
Sure.
you have to be on the same page with that because it's not fair for one to always be towing the line of this is what you have to do.
right?
Totally agree with that. Becomes harder when you're divorced and the kids are going back and forth from different households and doing all that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing to remember here is I think the biggest thing that I'm getting tonight is that it's all about communication.
Yeah.
What is
Yes.
expected? How do we
for
do this
sure.
together?
For sure.
And there isn't really a gender role, but
Well, and-
more of a
Yeah, maybe that's the next step.
parenting role.
Well, it's gender roles and that sort of dynamic between the relationships is now giving way to partnerships. Like
Yeah.
true household partnerships.
Which is intense when you have all the different backgrounds of ways of thinking things are done. And I think kids add that much more complication to the whole thing in general.
Totally
Does that
agree.
make sense?
Yes.
This is definitely a parenting and gender role conversation.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, I mean,
Well,
I think
well,
it's
that's
hard
half
to leave the kids out of. I mean,
The gender,
a gender
the
role
roles.
because
Yeah, absolutely.
as a mother, the one over the kid. I mean, that becomes a big
That becomes a big
big
part of
thing.
your role.
Yeah.
What you're doing and what you're overseeing.
and just making the household run.
Yeah.
So
Well, and helping your kids understand what their roles are going to be in the future. Like
totally.
I tell Lennox that I don't tell him that. I tell him, make sure you really spend time with whoever you're dating. Get to know them. Just make sure that you guys go through hard things and
Yeah.
and that you can communicate and do all those things and help out. You may be going to work all day. I don't know what you're going to do, but take notice.
Yeah.
Don't just show up for dinner and then disappear back down to your man cave or whatever.
Yeah.
I can
Like
speak
interact
from
and hang
my
out. Yeah.
from the terrible things that I did back in the day, right?
Yeah. Did you do that? Like
It's a
where
cautionary
you would,
tale.
you would escape to go do stuff like that?
Well, that was sort of my like I'm done
probably
with work.
and probably more work too. Sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like I worked at home and then it was like, okay, I'm just going to check out for a little bit. And I would present it like this. It's like, hey, my brother called and wants to play video games tonight. Is that cool? And she would be like, why don't you just say you want to play?
That's
And
fascinating.
Totally call me on
Yeah.
it. And so I think I finally got better at that. But it was too many times, too often, not
Yeah.
being present enough. It was a lot of checkout and
I can't
No, I
even
can
tell
own that
you
part.
what Curry would do to me if I was like, hey, like I just got home. Thanks for dinner. I'm going to go play video games the rest of the night.
I would lose my shit.
Well, this is what made me think about gender roles, is because I saw that video clip from the breakup with Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn. And that's her whole argument, is like, she's like, they get into a huge argument and break up, right? And her whole thing is like, I've worked all day. I had to plan dinner. I came home and I cooked dinner. I made this lovely meal. And like, now you won't even help me with the dishes because you want to check out and play video games. Yeah. And then that spirals into like, you never take me to the ballet, you know, and his response is like, I hate the ballet. Well, you're not going for you, you're going for me, you know, like, it's just that like that spiral of like, you got to do things for other, even if you hate it, you got to do
Apparently
things for the
that
one
can lead
love.
to divorce. I'm just saying.
Weird, I know.
That's just
Been
a
there.
Hollywood dream. That's never true.
It's not reality. Let me tell you. Oh, dear.
Everyone just wants to feel loved, appreciated, and the communication is the biggest part of that.
Yeah. And supported in whatever role, gender role or not, but whatever role in the marriage and relationship that they take on, they want to feel supported in it.
Yeah.
Well,
And heard.
Well, I commit to do better, Curry.
Come home and give me a hug every day.
Do you want to hug every day?
No,
but you have to ask
Never
for it.
mind.
I want
Never
this to be
mind. Do
audited.
not.
You know what? He'll put a little sticky note on the garage door for the days that he needs a hug.
Give me a hug and stay away.
It's
There'll
funny.
be two.
I came home from a lunch meeting and threw open the door, just yelled, "Honey, I'm home." And then I just kind of got sad.
You realized you were divorced?
Oh, there's nobody
At
here.
least Pepper maybe came running.
Great.
Yeah, Pepper
I'll
came right.
make dinner.
Oh, Dad's home.
I know what I'll do. I'll make deviled eggs right after Justin says, I want to eat healthy tonight.
Next time, just say, Alexa, honey, I'm home.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
And then you'll
Oh,
feel validated.
okay. All right. I will do that. Do that.
I think that's a wrap.
Good
did
one. All right. Thanks, everybody. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Don't forget, you can find us online at tipsyneighbors.com, at the Tipsy Neighbors on Instagram, and on X, formerly Twitter, at Tipsy Neighbors. We hope to hear from you soon.